Hi everyone, Dr. Pinder here, and today we're talking trees at the Siuslaw Model Forest in Acre, New York. I would have really loved to get you guys out here in person, but I thought I'd make this video instead, and we're going to walk along and see what kind of trees we can identify. This model forest is exactly what the name sounds like. It is a model forest. It is a model of best management practices used for watershed management as well as agroforestry. What's great about this place is that it has tons of trees, literally tons of trees, and lots of different species. So we're going to see just how many we can find from our list. So this species here is a white ash, and the way we can tell is that it is a compound leaf. If you notice, this is the stem right here. This is what we call the leaflets that are coming off. And the main difference between this guy and a black ash is the margin of the leaf, or the smoothness of this leaf, but also then this little tiny stem on the leaflet. As you can see with this specimen, it is dying. This is one of the trees that is highly susceptible to the emerald ash borer. The ash trees in general in our area are very important economically, and this is something that is causing a major problem with the tree's health. This tree here is a ginkgo, and this is one of the ones I was telling you guys about that is in the group the gymnosperm. So it is a non-flowering deciduous tree. This is our eastern red cedar, and as you guys can see, the flattened scale-like leaves are a little bit round if you were to roll them in your fingers here. And they're kind of spiky, more spiky than the white cedar would be. And as you can see, it does have a juniper berry on it. Remember, this could also be called a juniper, but its common name is the eastern red cedar, even though it is in the juniper group. Here we have the tulip poplar, also known as the tulip tree. You can see it has this beautiful leaf here that's very obvious with the two lobes on each side, and it's going to be a mirror image of each other. And then you can see this bud here. In the springtime, this will actually produce a tulip-like flower. Here is our eastern white pine. You can tell because it does have these nice soft pliable needles, and they are going to be in bunches of 5. So I don't know how well you can see this on the video, but there are 5 needles there, and they're about the width of my hand. This is our sycamore. So you notice it has relatively large leaves with these pointy margins. Looks similar to a maple, but it does have more points to it. And if you look at the bark, that's the best distinguishing characteristic. As it ages, it's going to start peeling away and revealing a smooth whitish bark. So the older it is, the smoother and whiter the bark is going to be. And it sloughs off in these big scales as it ages. Here we have our sugar maple, and in contrast to our last tree, you can see it's got a smoother, more kind of swoopy margin to this leaf. And what we're going to look at here too is we're going to compare this to the red maple, where this is relatively green on this side and the stem is also pretty green. Also, in contrast to our sycamore, you can see the trunk has some pleats in it and some larger scales, but it's not going to slough off and get smooth like the sycamore did. Here we have another member of the maple group. This is a striped maple, and I can tell by its really large leaves that have this serrated edge along it. And then if you look at the twigs, they're going to be very, very smooth and striped. The trunk is also going to be smooth and striped. These guys don't grow on average very large. This is kind of an average sized tree, and it's only about 6 feet tall. But they are an important member of the undergrowth in the woods. Here we have the quaking aspen, and it's called quaking because it has this flattened leaf stem here that when it gets caught in the wind will actually wave just like this. This you can tell that it is the quaking aspen not only by that flattened stem, but it's also going to have these alternate leaves. This is a simple leaf compared to that compound leaf we saw before. There's just one leaf stem to one leaf. And then it has kind of a squatty, kind of triangular shape, but kind of rounded shape as well, that comes to a point and is very lightly serrated on the edge. Here's another quaking aspen, and what I wanted to mention is it's a very common tree, and it's often used for shavings for bedding, for animal bedding. The reason is that it's not a super sturdy tree, it's not super strong or durable, but it is something that is commercially important. Here we have the American larch, also known as the tamarack, and this is our main deciduous conifer. And what I mean by that is in a few weeks all of these needles will turn a nice brilliant golden yellow, and they will all fall off much the way our regular deciduous trees lose their leaves. Then next year they are going to grow these back in these same little bundles, and as you can notice they have bundles of many needles in one, unlike our pines that have the 2 to 5 per bundle. These guys have many of them. They also have these nice little cones, but you can easily spot the tamarack by looking for these needle bundles that are quite pronounced. And also in the fall, they are going to be the only conifers in our area that are going to lose all of their needles. Here we have the red maple, and if we compare this with the sugar maple, you notice that in the margin of the leaf it is rather sharp at the edges compared to our sugar maple. The other big difference is that generally the red maple has this red leaf stem, and when you flip it over it's much lighter on the back side than it is on the top side. Here we have the northern red oak, and so a red oak versus a white oak, if we look at the leaf margin, the red oaks usually have more points on them, whereas the white oaks are more rounded. With this guy, we know it's a red oak because it kind of has this widening shape here, and then these rounded clefts that extend not quite to halfway to the midrib. So here's the midrib, and these clefts go not quite halfway. Some, particularly the smaller ones, are going to be less, and then we have some that are going to be more where they are reaching a little bit farther in here. One thing that makes oaks really tricky to identify is that they have a tremendous amount of variability in the leaf just on one tree. So you saw how this guy looks here, then you have one that looks like this. And this changes as you go up into the tree based on the amount of sunlight that the leaf is getting. So the tree has the ability to have leaves that are more prone to cooling and other ones that are going to pick up more sunlight, like this nice broad leaf here. And as you can see, the leaves on this part look much like the one we saw before, but you can see there's quite a bit of variability in that leaf shape, where this one almost looks like a big paw print. All right, so what you are thinking you probably have here is a white paper birch. What this one is actually is the gray birch, which is often confused with the paper birch. One of the ways I can tell is these really nice triangular black patches where the stem would have come out. So you can see this here. The other difference, if you look in this book, the gray birch is going to have this nice pointed shape in the leaf, whereas the paper birch has a more rounded margin. And so if we look at the leaves here on this tree, you can see they have that nice sharper teardrop shape. Here we have the black cherry. It's very hard to see the trunk from where we're standing, but we can figure out that it is the black cherry by several different features. The first thing is that the leaves are alternate, meaning they go up the stem in an alternating fashion, almost as if they're walking up the stem. The other thing is that they don't have lobes the way that the sycamore or the maples do. What they have is this serrate edge that you can just barely see here, and this lanceolate shape. They are simple leaves, meaning there's just one per leaf stem. And then if we were to key these out, we'd come down to the two choices between the black cherry and the pin cherry in our book. If we flip this guy over, what we notice there is that there's this fuzziness along the midrib on the underside of the leaf. This fuzziness indicates that this is a black cherry. So here we have that paper birch, and one way we can tell is because it does have these sheets of bark coming off that are very thin like paper, and these guys do this a lot more than that gray birch does. The other thing we can tell is where the stem scars are, there isn't that really sharp black triangular shape. And this is a quite tall specimen, but if you were to look up at the top, you would see that those leaves are a little bit more rounded as opposed to a sharp teardrop shape. Now here I found some big tooth aspen leaves, and you guys can see why it's called big tooth. It has these big spikes coming off the edge. Now these came from a tree that's right over here that's pretty tall, but you can still see the big teeth from the ground. Here we found a younger big tooth aspen here. Again, you can see the nice big teeth on this guy. As we're walking around the pond here, what we found is a pretty young red maple, and I thought we should stop and look at it because it really has that nice striking red color even in the stem of the tree itself. And you can see it also has those nice sharp lobes, the crisp edges there, and you can also see just how stark that underside is compared to the top side, where it is going to be much lighter green on the underside than it is on the top side of the leaf. Here we have that nice red pine, and if you can tell, I have one of the needle bundles in my hand, and it's just those two needles in each group, and you can see how long those needles are too. This one's about 5 to 6 inches long here. Here we have the white oak. Now this particular one is the swamp white oak, which you can tell because it's wider at the outer edge than it is at the base. But the reason we can tell it's a white oak and not a red oak is because it has those rounded leaf lobes as opposed to having the points on them like the red oaks do. I hope you guys enjoyed your trip to the Siuslaw Model Forest here in Acre, New York. If you want to visit it yourself, it's right on Route 23. Just head west from the Rip Van Winkle Bridge in Catskill towards Windham. Once you get to Acre, it'll be on your right. On the left-hand side, there is the Cornell Cooperative Extension Agroforestry Resource Center, and they can also help you there too in terms of learning about agroforestry and farming in your own woods.